Hi, let's talk about Unity and Gestalt. Gestalt in graphic design. What is Gestalt first? Uh, it is actually an organized whole that is perceived as more than the sum of its parts. What do I mean about this? That means it's a psychology whereby when we see, we're talking about visual sense now. When we look at an object or an element, we tend to see more than what is actually actually displayed in the element. That means it's just trying to send a message, showing us more. There's a concept behind it. So let me go. There are several principles attached to this, and the principles is what will make us understand it better. So I'll start with there are actually five principles attached to Gestalt. Number one principle attached to Gestalt is continuity. What this means is that um, it makes the eyes travel around. A perfect example can be reflected in logos, whereby when you see a particular element, you tend to understand what it means. For instance, now as you can see the logo of ProQuest, the letter Q is actually having a very long tail that shows a flow, a path. One, the flow is also representing a path in the logo, starts here and it goes. So it's actually connecting or sending a note to people that okay, this is what the logo is talking about. This is what the brand is talking about. So ProQuest, the queue travels through a path. It helps us the continuity, the principle behind Gestalt, which is continuity, makes the eyes to travel around. A perfect example is Amazon. Everyone knows Amazon very well. It's as you can see, we are used to the logo and we know there's an arrow at the bottom of Amazon. Then the arrow spans from A to Z, which is actually depicting the fact that on Amazon you have A to Z of everything. So that's just it. And as you can see, as the arrow travels, it pushes the Z up a bit with a little curve. Pushes the Z up a bit with a little curve around this side, around the side. So the same thing applies to the USA network logo. USA network logo, the U and the A comes together to actually reflect the continuity of the negative space S. So the both of them created a space for the USA. So that is that for the first principle, continuity. Now the second principle, which is closure. What does closure do? Closure helps you understand actually the element is not there, but you can perceive it as if it's there. That's just one thing about what's it called? The principal closure. So as you can see, this is about the glass case that covers the filament is not in the content, is not in it, is not in this composition, but the hand forms it and there's a sense of it being there. So a perfect example is also WWF logo also. If we actually take out these black shapes and spray it, I will notice that we cannot have this particular form, which is the panda again. But the fact that the shapes we arrange this way and blends with the negative space, it makes us understand that okay, oh, this looks or this is a panda. A perfect example is the EA, the he has a space in between the strands of the letter properties here, which makes us understand that this is the letter E, even without the fact that this strands wasn't there. We still understand that this is the letter E, and the same thing applies to this A. So I've talked about the USC logo here. So we can actually the concept about the concept of closure in Gestalt is you can actually interplay or play with negative space to help you form or give the full idea of a simple element. It gives you the if you can break down the simple element, it will give if you can break it down in relation to the negative space, it helps you give a broader view of what you're actually spelling or telling out. That is and the next it is a third principle is similarities. What similarity does is it helps you, as you all know, similar things, similar elements. Most times the element might not really look similar, but checking it from afar, you understand that there's a bit similarity in between them and a bit relationship in between them. And we all know the NBC logo. The NBC logo, as you can see, this logo has almost same shape at the top here, but they have different colors, which makes them a bit not similar. But talking about the shape, the shapes are similar. And if you can look closely, you see a very tiny dot or very tiny mountain, which signifies a peacock. A peacock. This is a peacock shape. This is the feathers of the peacock, and the peacock body and the head is around the side. So that is what was it called? Similarity does. Similarities and also closure incorporated in this single or in this composition. So also uh, um, we have proximity. What proximity, which I've explained generally in all the logos, is arrangement of related item, object, or element. Arrangement of elements together, related elements together. I've explained that in the MBC logos, in the MBC logo, and we can see this is the shape of a man raising up his hand, arranged together. It's actually a similar shape. They arranged together to form a tree, and the same thing applies to the Unilever logo. This is not letter U, but the arrangement of these particular shapes forms the letter U. And the Adidas strokes when scattered does not mean anything, but when arranged together, it gives us the Adidas shape or Adidas logo. So and also the fourth principle, which is similarities, is a symmetry rather. Symmetry, what symmetry does, which I've explained in the previous logo, symmetry helps you understand that what is actually on the A part is the same thing as B. So if I dissect or divide this into two, you notice that what we have here is what we have here. The same thing applied to this Pepsi logo. Divide here, what we have here is what we have here. McDonald's logo, the same thing. And this also the same thing. Division into two equal half and having the same thing on both ends. Um, this is a perfect example of Gestalt. So its principle is figure and ground, which means the the, the background blends, or the background sends out or perceive makes the viewer perceive the fact that there's a content in the whole composition. There's actually a message in the whole composition. This is a perfect example of the figure and the background. This as you can see, the white background with different forms of shapes and all of that. So just create a typographical display, design, cane-made visual, and all of that. So I will put up some other elements, some other sample designs that can depict this Gestalt um, principle, which is this is a perfect example here. The perfect, as you can see, this is 1 hour. In the 1 hour, we can see that the one is coming out of a single circle, which we can also call that, and not just the circle. As you can see, the letter N on the right hand side is also complementing the end or the side part of the 1 hour. Talking about this also gestures around this corner are trying to make provisions for this is continuity closure on its own end. This is closure on its own end. This is a perfect example of closure on its own on its own. And also this is also a perfect example of gestalt. Also, as you can see, 15 days left for the countdown and all of that. This is a perfect example of figure and background. Figure and background. So, and ground rather as a principle. And this 61 days is a perfect example of figure and ground also. So that is that for Gestalt. I believe during the course of the class, we will still have more to talk about Gestalt. Thank you.